Tell me when you're ready. Okay. So, Rabotai, the subject of the shiur today is the righteous of the nation. Many of you heard about it. Am I right? These righteous of the nation. And today I would like to speak about a special man. I don't know how many of you know about him. Mr. Sugihara. Anyone heard about Sugihara? Wow. 3 people. 4, the Japanese. Many people hear about him. Let's see what we know about him. But before we start, I would like to start with a Mishnah. The Mishnah in Masechet Sanhedrin, in chapter 4, verse 5, tell us. Listen to that. I'm going to read it in Hebrew, then I will translate it to English. כל המקיים נפש אחת מישראל מעלה עליו הכתוב כאילו קיים עולם ומלואו. What does it mean? Anyone who saves a life of a Jew is considered like he saved the entire world. That's the Mishnah in Masechet Sanhedrin. Okay, so we said that we're going to speak about Sugihara. Sugihara, born on the 1st of January in the 19th century, in the 1900, he was a diplomat, a Japanese diplomat. In 1939, in the autumn of 1939, Sugihara been sent by the Jap government to become the general consul of Japan in the city of Kovna, that's in a country that's called Lita. To become the general consul, remember, of Japan in Kovna, in Lita. Winter 1939. A little boy, 11 years old, Mr. Soli Ganor. How many of you heard here about Soli Ganor? Not many. Soli Ganor was 11 years old in the winter of 1939 in Hanukkah. In the festival of Hanukkah, he received a Hanukkah geld from his parents, a very young boy. Every young boy received Hanukkah geld. Soli Ganor in his house, and he heard knock on the house, knocking on the door. In the front door, standing Jewish woman that come to collect money for the Polish refugees that survived what's happened in Poland. We're talking about 1939, Rabotai. Soli Ganor heard the story, 11 years old, take all of his Hanukkah geld and given the Jewish woman. To give to who? To the Polish refugees. The following morning, Soli Ganor walked in the streets of Kovna. Soli Ganor see a big sign, Laurel and Hardy. Arrived to town, he wanted to see the movie. But suddenly he remembered, listen, I've given all my money for tzedakah. What would the young boy do? Go on to his aunt's shop. Soli Ganor marched to his aunt's shop. His aunt have a sweet shop. Am I right, Dr. Les? Confectionery shop. Did sweet, everything. To ask her for money to see the movie of Laurel and Hardy. While he's talking to her, Mr. Sugihara was in the shop. And the aunt told the story. What does the little nephew want from him? So Sugihara was very impressed with what young man, Mr. Soli Ganor, done, and offered to pay for the ticket. Soli Ganor refused. He said, I cannot take money from people that they're not member of the family. Sugihara offered himself to become his uncle. That's not the end, Rabotai. Soli Ganor said, in that case, if you want to become my uncle, you must come and light a candle with my family. Surprisingly enough, The general counsel agreed to it, Mr. Sugihara. And he came on Motzei Shabbos, him and his wife and his 4 kids, to the house of the Ganor family to light the Hanukkah candle. While they was there, Mr. Sugihara met with a refugee that lost his wife, but he was there with his daughter that got a shelter in the house of the Ganor family. And that refugee told the story, what's happening in Poland, to Mr. Sugihara. Before you realize, the word moved from mouth to ears like the speed of light. And every Jew heard that was in Kovna heard that the general counsel of Japan was in a house of the Ganor family. Before you realize, 200 Jewish refugees standing outside the Jap consulate wanted to meet Mr. Sugihara. Sugihara asked to meet only with 5 of them because he's not going to manage to deal with all the 200. So he asked 5 of them to become the representative of those Jewish refugees. Amongst them, Rabotai, was Zorah, not Zerah, Zorah Vahavdik. Zorah Vahavdik, how many of you hear about him? Vahavdik. The grandson is Rabbi Yaakov Vahavdik. He given smicha here to a number of rabbi here in South Africa. Zorah Vahavdik was among those that sound Megillat HaAtzmaut. Everyone know what it's Megillat HaAtzmaut? No. Israel, when she got the independent, he was among those that signed that declaration. Zorah Vahavdik. He was among those 5. And they met with Mr. Sugihara, and they told him the story, what's happening with the Jews in Europe, especially in Poland. And they asked Sugihara if they can issue exit visas to those Jews to leave Europe. Sugihara answered them, he will speak to his government, and he will see what he can do. Sugihara obviously sent messages to his government, and the answer was not. 3 times he tried, and 3 times the question been denied, not to give the visas. Sugihara was in a dilemma, in a big dilemma. What can he do? He knows that there is Jewish getting murdered, killed, butchered, whatever you want to call it, by the Nazis. The problem was that the Jap and the Nazi joined forces. You all know that. Sugihara spoke to his wife, and together they decide it's better to do the right thing in the eyes of the Almighty instead of the eyes of his government. Now, Rabotai, we have to understand one thing. In those days, the visa didn't come like we have today, printout. Everything was a hand-written right. Not only that, hand stamp. Sugihara start issuing visas. Him and his wife, they worked day and night to issue those visas until Sugihara been asked to leave Kovna. That's mean litter. After the war, Sugihara, because he was General Counsel of Japan, because of that, the Russian government sent them for 18 months, him and his wife and his kids, to 18 months in jail. Because he was against the Russian, he was part with the unit of the Nazi government, the German government. That was after the war. In 1947, Sugihara returned back to Japan. The Japanese government took all of his honor, obviously removed them from that position to become a diplomat. He couldn't be anymore. Not only that, as many of you know, the honor in Japan is one of the most important things. They took his honor from him. Sugihara now in a problem. He doesn't have a job. He have temporary job here and there for a few days, for a few months, until in the end he find a job to become a manager of a company of export and import company. In 1968, the Israeli government decided to give a full bursarship of studying to his son, to his youngest son, an Israeli Hebrew University. In December 69, Sugihara came to visit in Israel, to visit his youngest child. Now let's stop here. Did you ask yourself, what is Sugihara, a diplomat, general consul of Japan, doing in Kovna? Did you ask yourself? What does he have to do there? The Jap and the Nazis joined forces together. What is he doing there? Later on, been found out that, a matter of fact, the main job of Sugihara wasn't only just to be a general consul. He was a spy. He wanted to find out what's happening in Europe, how things going for the German. That's the main reason that he been sent to Kovno, to Lita. In 1985, Yad Vashem. Everyone heard about Yad Vashem? They given a, you heard, you've been there, okay? They given the highest honor that you can get to the Gentile. They given Mr. Sugihara, the righteous of the nation. His wife flew to Israel to receive that great honor. Sugihara in that time wasn't in a condition to fly to Israel. He was very fragile. He couldn't take the flight, and his wife flew to Israel to receive that honor. Sugihara was very sick, as I mentioned, so he couldn't fly. In July 1986, Sugihara passed away. Not many people knew about him until then. In 2016, the mayor of Netanya at that time was a woman, funny enough. She's still there, the same mayor, okay. That woman, because it was a great donation from Japan, they given the honor and the name street and the name of Sugihara in Netanya. But there's one thing that when I spoke to Dr. Les, I don't know if you know, there is a park in Jerusalem in the name of Sugihara also, that been named. There is another street in Eretz Israel, in Jaffa, in the name of Sugihara, that the states of Israel decide to honor Mr. Sugihara. Okay. That's 2016. That ceremony was his son in 2016 when they named the street in Netanya, and that ceremony was his son, Naboki. He was there because his father passed away. He was there. Rabbi, let's stop for a minute and let's ask ourselves, who would think Hanukkah Gelt, Laurel and Hardy movie will change the history of the Jewish people? Mr. Sugihara saved over 6,000 Jews. Rabotai, until the moment that he had to leave Kovna, him and his wife was issuing exit visas. The change of the Jewish history, because Laurel and Hardy movie and Hanukkah Gelt. Look at the miracle. But that's not the end. That's not the end. Rabotai, we have a mitzvah in the Torah to show gratitude. You remember we done that? To show gratitude. If anyone done good to us, we obligate to show gratitude. So I've been asked by my dear friend, Dr. Glassman, please, can I do a shiur about Mr. Sugihara to show gratitude? So the little that I can do to show thank you to Mr. Sugihara in behalf of the Jewish nation is this little story that I told. I tried to summarize because the time that we have for the show is very, usually we try to do it in 20 minutes, maximum half an hour. I hope that I didn't go on over. But we all have to show gratitude. If the Torah tells us to show gratitude, how much that we have to show. Not only that Hazal tell us in a Mishnah, Kol HaMekayem Nefesh Ahat MiYisrael Ki'ilu Kiyem Olam Umlo. A person that saved one Jew, it's considered like he saved the entire world. Mr. Sugihara, we don't know exactly the numbers. I tried to find out, and I think that also Dr. Les tried to find out. We couldn't find what exactly the number that he saved, because you can't tell, because he issued over 2,000 visas. Now, average family, it's at least a husband and a wife and a kid. Let's take a kid, or 2 kids. Do you understand what I'm saying? Work it out. Over 6,000 Jews been saved by one man. And they tried to offer him money. Sugihara refused. He said, I didn't done it for the money. I done it on one condition, that the Almighty will be happy. Rabotai, those righteous people of the nation, they have a special Gan Eden. I'm not a Mekubal, I can't tell you where he is in Gan Eden, what Gan Eden he is. It's not for us to judge. We're not here to judge. But we're here to remember. And we're here to pass the message. To keep the flame going. That if a Gentile saved over 6,000 Jews, how much respect and honor and hakarat hatov we should give Mr. Sugihara. Please God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have mercy on us, because this morning I saw in the news that another little Jewish girl been stabbed in Armon HaNatziv. It just doesn't stop. We are in Havelei Mashiach for sure. So please God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we remember how many Jewish blood already been spilt, and will send us Mashiach tzidkenu b'mehera b'yameinu amen ken yeh ratzon. רבי חנניה בן עקשיא אומר, רוצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל, לפיכך הרבה להם תורה ומצוות, שנאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר.